All right, so welcome to Neighboring 101, but this month it's also the Missouri Good Neighbor Week Connector Training. Serves dual purposes, and we meet once a month. We try to connect with leaders all across the country that are working in this neighboring space, with always the goal of making our communities better by using neighboring as a grassroots approach. So we're glad to have you here today. And we're going to kick off with a video. This is very short, but hopefully this gets everyone in the mood with the topic here of neighboring. Whoops. Well, I hope I've not frozen up. Okay, let's try this again. Sorry about that. I am a Zoom professional. Here we go.
Fred Rogers once said, "Imagine what our real neighborhoods would be like if each of us, as a matter of course, shared a kind word with one another."
September 28th to October 4th is Missouri Good Neighbor Week. We encourage you to say a kind word or do a kind act of neighboring in your neighborhood.
Missouri Good Neighbor Week is a great time to share kindness with your neighbors. This year, we set a goal to document 10,000 acts of neighboring in Missouri.
To celebrate, neighbors have written notes to their neighbors, done cleanup work for a neighborhood, shared flowers, or even organized a block party. Get involved in whatever way you can to connect with your neighbors and help us reach our goal.
We also want to encourage you to nominate your most engaged neighbor. All nominees will receive a gift and grand prizes will be awarded.
Go to MissouriGoodNeighborWeek.com to register your act of neighboring or to nominate your most engaged neighbor. Let's make our world and neighborhood a better place, one kind deed at a time. Well, there's our promo video that we hope will flood social media, and you'll certainly have access to that to use and share in the way that works best for you. Now we'll get going here. Sorry, these transitions are a little clunky today. Sorry about that. So again, welcome. This is our training for Missouri Good Neighbor Week. I'd love for this to be like a cheerleading event, like, you know, we're all getting together. It's like a pep rally, rah, rah. That's a little hard to do by Zoom, I realize. And but maybe you can imagine with me that that's what's going on. And by the end, I hope you're really motivated to be even further involved. Well, let's start with a little quiz, and you can answer this by raising hands or saying something on your microphone. Is National Pretzel Day a real holiday? Now, if you're a fan of The Office, you know that they celebrate that day on the Office TV show. What do you think? Is it a real holiday? Getting a few probablys, yes. So some of you think probably anything qualifies as a national holiday. It sure seems that way, doesn't it? Well, the real answer is no, it is not a national holiday. Let's try one more here. How about National Dog Day? My dog Otis, I think, thinks every day is National Dog Day. He has a pretty good life. I'm getting some no's on that one. Few people may be catching on to what's taking place here. It probably should be, yes, as many dogs as there are, and the way we love them, but it's actually not a national holiday. Now, I have to be fair and throw this in. What about National Cat Day? I'm happy to report that National Cat Day is not a national holiday. Can you tell I'm not a cat fan? Sorry about that, but I did want to throw it in to be fair. But what about National Good Neighbor Day? Is that a real national holiday? Have you ever seen one celebrate that? Or do stores have National Good Neighbor Day sales or anything? And we don't hear a lot about that, but yeah, Chet, ask Jimmy Carter. That is exactly right, because Jimmy Carter is the one that signed legislation that that made National Good Neighbor Day an official holiday. Who knew, right? This was back in the 1970s that this lady in Lakeside, Montana really kind of began the initiative. And he signed a proclamation in 1978. You can look the proclamation up online. It's number 4601, declaring National Good Neighbor Day. Originally, it was the third Sunday of September, I believe, or fourth Sunday. And then in 2003, they changed it to September 28th to that actual date. So there really is a National Good Neighbor Day. Now, if you look up the URL, that website, Tim DeTillis in Florida owns the URL. He will tell you he didn't invent the idea of National Good Neighbor Day. He was just savvy enough to buy the URL a long time ago. So that's actually an individual that has that. So what about Missouri Good Neighbor Week? Is this just kind of a made up idea? Well, you'll see later on the train, there is history behind this, is how we got to this point. But now I can say, thanks to the help of Missouri Representative Bishop Davidson, that Missouri Good Neighbor Week actually is official. It passed both houses this year. It's HB 1738. It was a standalone bill for a while, but then he ended up adding the language to another bill that was racing through the legislature on the last day of session. And that legislation ended up with several different commemorative events, like School Bus Appreciation Day or School Bus Driver Appreciation Day. But included in that is also Missouri Good Neighbor Week. And that's the language for the bill. It is on the governor's desk. There's no reason anybody knows of that it wouldn't get signed. It's not a controversial thing, and it did clear both houses easily. So we're waiting for that to officially be signed, but my representative tells me that should happen here soon. So I do think it's official, HB 1738, designating Missouri Good Neighbor Week. And the way through the legislative process, the proposal changed a little bit, and it changed to begin on September 28th, which is National Good Neighbor Day, and they can continue for 6 more days. That's where we landed here in Missouri. Now, before we go through some of the other history, I just want to highlight some of the roles of connectors, so you can kind of be thinking about this as we go through this other information and details. We're really depending on these county and city connectors to help spread this program statewide and to really have county by county impact. And so that's why we're relying on you to help spread the word. You don't have to spread the word statewide, just spread the word in your context, in your county, in your city about Missouri Good Neighbor Week. If you've already registered and you're connected with the county, you're in a spreadsheet, and individuals in that county will get to help judge the neighbor submissions and the engaged neighbor nominations for that county. So you're going to get to help select the ones that are honored in your county. See, Jennifer, I think I'm still hearing some people join, and my secondary screen's not up. If they do, would you go ahead and admit them? I gave you co-host.
Yep, I will.
So you'll be helping judge those submissions and helping pick the best acts of neighboring in your county and the honoree for the most engaged neighbor in your county. So that's a fun thing to be involved in. We're asking connectors to think about, securing a sponsor or two, or if you're representing an extension council, maybe the extension council is the full sponsor for the awards. and you can decide in your context what works best. In Greene County last year, when we did the best acts of neighboring and the most engaged neighbor, we did a check for $250. And everybody seemed really thrilled with that amount. That may be too rich for your blood in your county. Maybe you want to do something else. Maybe it's a gift bag, gift cards. Maybe it's just a check for $100. But depending on your sponsors and your organizations, we think that's appropriate to give something tangible like that when you recognize those best acts of neighboring. So that probably requires a sponsor or two. But again, that could be your local extension council. And then at the end of the week, after you've judged the entries, then doing something to present those awards. Maybe it's just surprising them at their place of work, or maybe they come to a meeting, an extension council meeting even, to present those awards. So make it something special and something unique to your county. So we're going to go over today some of the resources that are available. Some of these have been worked on locally, some marketing materials that you can use, and these are available on Google Drive for download. So we'll get to that in just a minute. I know Jennifer has worked really hard on those. I think you'll be excited about some of those. But first, I thought it'd be fun to ask your thoughts on why you think something like Missouri Good Neighbor Week is important. Now, see, I see it more as a beginning, not the final solution. It's not like we celebrate Good Neighbor Week. Now everybody's good neighbors. Problem solved. Move along. It's a starting point. But what comes to your mind? What do you think is why something like this would be important? Feel free to add something in chat or unmute. Heather, the world needs more kindness, and when you create relationships, it's easier to work together. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're talking there a little bit about social capital. I think something like a Good Neighbor Week can really help build local social capital. Any others?
I think anything that gets the community activated or participating or thinking about a subject makes a difference.
Yes, absolutely. Good point. Was that Megan? Or Megan, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, hi. I think that communities are strengthened when people's gifts are surfaced and recognized. And so by doing these awards and sort of sharing the way people are connecting with others, that's a way to kind of profile those and share them with the bigger community. And I think it also celebrates the connectedness. And so I think everybody probably wants to believe that they live in a connected community. And so by showing folks that that's happening, it gives everybody an opportunity to buy into the sentiment that the community is strong.
Yes. Loved your use of the word everyone's gifts. There's a great book with that topic, which I'm going to guess you've read probably. But yeah, that's a great example. Great share. Morgan says creating general safety awareness, but also potential for a safety net for assistance in emergencies with neighbors. Absolutely. And Carolyn, getting to know your neighbors can create a support system, increase in safety again. Socialization, mental health. There are a few other things that come to my mind. I think it helps improve doing something like this, dedicating a week, doing some activities, can actually help improve quality of life in a neighborhood by building those connections. It can give you an opportunity to meet new neighbors, right? This might be what gets you motivated to take those steps to do that. They can be the start of better communication, even problem solving in a neighborhood as you're getting people connected. This might be the spark among neighbors that helps lead to more neighborhood improvement or collaboration. I think looking at it as the spark opportunity can help. That can lead to a greater sense of neighborhood pride even. For organizations like extension councils, for example, I think being involved with this can actually increase your visibility in the community. It can enhance your image as a community leader, and it can really help with board and volunteer recruitment. I know last year we added several people to our extension council that were involved in Good Neighbor Week and learned about extension in that way. So that can really be an important element as well. And just building those connections in the community. Eric says cultivating connection, agency, belonging. It increases collective efficiency and ability to solve numerous other issues. Yes, absolutely. A starting point for all of that. So that's why some of us, why we're thinking this is important. Hopefully some of those are the reasons that you're involved in finding this important. And
This is, excuse
sorry.
me,
Yeah, sure.
this is Paul. I'm a board certified psychologist, and allow me to start off on kind of a morbid illustration. I learned a long time ago that it's a lot easier to kill someone by pushing a button than to put your hands around their throat and do it face to face. And the reason I tell you that morbid little vignette is because on our block, this is a small town, but we have a really nice block, and I happen to know just about everybody on the block, but a lot of them don't know each other. And I'm thinking of wanting to do a block party for the block, because it starts to move. If people don't know each other, they don't know that their neighbors are nice, and that anonymity leads to this kind of urban attitude of just mind my own business, and people aren't looking out for each other. And if you don't know your neighbors, it's easier to get irritated by them and to start, a little irritation about noise or something turns into a feud. So I'm wanting to try to get everyone together so everyone knows, wow, we got an awesome bunch of people on our block, and even those who can't make it will appreciate the effort.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Later on in the year, in either November or January, we're going to have an author on Neighboring 101 he's written a book called Neighbors from Hell. And he's a lawyer. He spent years helping people negotiate or improve circumstances in neighborhoods. And he says the number one reason for getting to know your neighbors and having a positive relationship is for prevention. And that's a little bit of what you're kind of describing here. It's a lot harder to be mad at someone that you have a positive working relationship with. So yes, that could be an outcome for for Good Neighbor Week too. Well, let me give just a little bit of history about how we got to this place. Jennifer and I both love context. So here's a little bit of context. So Harvard did a study in the 1950s asking people what constitutes a good neighbor. This is the Harvard Medical School. And the majority of the responses, almost 90%, came back describing things that were social connections, like a good neighbor is someone who has us over for dinner. A good neighbor is someone who we play cards with. They watch our kids. They watch our house. We have interaction with them. That was how it was described then. They repeated the study with the same questions in 2016. And you might say the answers were 180 degrees different because most 80 some odd % of respondents were basically saying now that a good neighbor is someone who is quiet and leaves me alone. So that's a polar opposite of what we had in the 1950s. And we see that through other studies and other research that's being done about this change in how we perceive our neighbors and what it means to be a good neighbor. Well, I think there's more involved than that. I think a good neighbor is actually an engaged neighbor, not one that's just quiet and leaves you alone. And it's important for our communities as well. I just made a new friend this week who is doing some work in the neighboring space, and he had this great quote from Robert Putnam, who he has worked with on several things. And you may have read Bowling Alone, an outstanding book. And Putnam really narrows this down and says communities work better when neighbors know one another better. Knowing your neighbor is on a first name basis is a surprisingly effective first step toward a better America. So certainly we have those neighborhood reasons. maybe even a county level reasons. But this type of effort really has even a national impact potentially for us. So I love that quote from Putman. Well, locally, the context, we began a National Good Neighbor Day event in Republic, Missouri in 2018. That we worked with the city. We sent postcards to every resident asking them to take the day to get to know their neighbors. And we asked for people to give us feedback through a survey link about their experience and what they did. So it generated some conversation in the community of Republic, at least. And we had 84 people who took the time with no incentives to actually give us feedback and tell us about what they had done in the community. And that prompted more discussions in the city of Republic about what it means to be a good neighbor. One of the feedbacks we got on that survey was from a lady who was pregnant at the time. She was having a difficult pregnancy. She was isolated in her bed. Her husband had taken a second shift job, so he wasn't home during daylight, and their lawnmower didn't work. And she got turned into the city for her grass being too tall. The city came and ticketed her and then mowed her yard and charged her. And she wasn't mad at the city, and she really wasn't even mad at her neighbors. It was this light bulb moment when she said, you know, we've never made any effort to get to know our neighbors. None of them, they may have not even known I was pregnant. They certainly didn't know I was limited to the bed. And I'd like to think if I knew my neighbors or they knew me, that someone would have taken the time to mow our yard instead of just turning us into the city. And what a better outcome that would be for the community and the city as well, because the city would rather not invest the time in taking care of those types of issues. So it's better for the community and for the neighbors as well to build those connections. And for some people, 2018 was a little aha moment. And so in 2019, again in the city of Republic, and again in partnership with the city, we did postcards. We did a little more media attention this time, asking people to put together events in their neighborhood, like block parties, and do things on this day to get to know their neighbors and report back. Well, we had 18 block parties that took place in the city on that day, with almost 500 people in total attendance. So it was a one-day blast, but a successful event. And then, of course, COVID happened. So that kind of put the kibosh on how we had been doing these locally, but it gave me and some others time to think about what it might look like when COVID was in the rearview mirror a little bit. So in 2021, we launched a different approach, trying to do it countywide, not just in the city, with what we called 1,000 Acts of Neighboring Challenge. And we had sponsors lined up to do a $250 check for the best act of neighboring in every community in the county of Greene. So we had lots of media attention. And I suspect even in your own community this year with Missouri Good Neighbor Week, you're probably able to get some local radio coverage, maybe even local newspaper coverage, or a house ad free of charge to promote this idea of Missouri Good Neighbor Week. In Greene County in 2021, we had over $40,000 in media coverage, extensive TV coverage, TV PSAs, the two newspapers, almost full page ads at no cost to us promoting the idea. So I think that's doable in your community as well if you make a few asks. Well, the outcome exceeded our expectation. Through that feedback loop, we had 5,579 acts of neighboring reported from across the entire state of Missouri. And we weren't even targeting the state of Missouri. We were just targeting Greene County. And our goal of 1,000, yeah, we blew that out of the water. 2,281 reported acts of neighboring. We did some statewide awards as well. And these are those examples. I think Sherry was going to be on this video today. Sherry is in Houston, Missouri, and DNL Florist, and they do a great program there where they allow people to give away individual roses to their neighbors on National Good Neighbor Day. It's a great event. There's a video about it on YouTube if you're interested. But some of the other examples of things we honored as part of that celebration. So there's a little bit of history here and a track record of success. So I think that's something to cheer about and something to be excited about, that you're joining in with something that has had a history of success, but it's time to take it even bigger. And you're really at the forefront of making this even bigger and more meaningful across the entire state. But we need all of you. We need all of you involved to help make that happen. Now, there is a plan in place. There's statewide partners this year are MU Extension and MU Extension Councils, and then also the Hopeful Neighborhood Project, which is headquartered in St. Louis area. But certainly we welcome other organizations and individuals locally. And some of the changes that we have made for 2022, I want you to know, have come from participant feedback. Things that we heard from participants, especially this idea of being able to nominate other people as an outstanding neighbor. That was a big part of the feedback we heard last year. We did a marketing focus group, and that's part of what's guided some of the changes that we've had as well. And there's more information and details in the instruction kit in the Google file that I'll give you a link to, and I already sent to you by email if you want to really look down through that instructional kit and see the checklist items. I'll pause just a little bit to see if there's a question here, and then we'll jump into sort of the connector checklist. Don't hesitate to ask as we go along. I know watching a PowerPoint and hearing a voice through Zoom can be a little tedious, and sorry for that. But I think we've gotten used to it too. But we'll keep trying to make this as quick as possible. So the checklist, if you've already registered for this training, then you're already registered as a connector. But after this training is over, if people want to register as a connector in their county, they can just email me. They'll be added to the spreadsheet of county connectors. Really, those connectors, again, we want you to try and get some local sponsors. That can be your extension council. It could be someone else or other businesses to help have prizes for your best acts of neighboring and your most engaged neighbor in the county, and make it something fun for your county or town, something meaningful there. The Hopeful Neighborhood Project is helping with statewide promotion. Everyone who gets nominated as a outstanding neighbor is going to receive something, and they're also helping with some prizes. We'll have complete transparency on that closer to the actual date. And then we're going to Extension is going to host 4 statewide prizes again this well, which someone could win a county prize and also win a state prize, or they could be completely different. But those will be available this year as well. Something that might be fun, I've had success here locally of asking cities and county commissions to do a proclamation for Missouri Good Neighbor Week. And the instructional kit that's in the Google Drive, there's a sample proclamation in that. You may want to tailor it to your own community, but cities and county commissions love to do things like that. Just get to them early, get on their schedule, and see if they'll do a proclamation for you. And then as a connector, you may want to host your own neighboring event, right? Get involved by doing your own activity. And then the links that we have in place for people to use to report acts of neighboring and to nominate outstanding neighbors, you can use those links like they are your own. Put them on your Facebook pages, on your own website, use them in your own materials like this is your idea. They are freely for use and dissemination in that way. These are the links, and again, those will be in your emails and the instructional kit that goes out. They're active now. If you want to look at them, I guess, to see what they involve, you're welcome to do that. But we'll be accepting the data and collecting it during that week of September 28th to October 4. Then also on the connector checklist, at the end of the week, after people from all over the state have put in their acts of neighboring and their nominations, you're going to receive a spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet will have the nominations and submissions that have come from your county. And so you'll be able to use that information to make your selections and decide which one are your top winners, which ones you're going to recognize with local awards and recognition. But that county level judging will be entirely up to you. In Greene County last year, I did that by myself, but this year I'm looking forward to having some other people in Springfield and Greene County help make those county decisions, because it was harder than you might think. And so there were a lot of great submissions. If a county has multiple people, you don't know each other, that will be a time prior to the week that we'll do some county introductions, and everyone who's representing a single county introduce you to each other so you know who's involved. Yeah, Megan, I see you've got a hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. Forgive me, I'm sure that there are examples of projects and I haven't been able to unpack your email. For those of us who, so I live in St. Louis County, so I live in a metropolitan area within a municipality where I'm an elected official. Explain to me how the kind of relationship around this works relative to the county extension council and how much we can do independently. We've started a lot of, kind of work on we call it lessening the distance and creating a sense of belonging. And so we kind of have some momentum in that direction. How independent can we be? How does that collaboration look with the extension? Is that an important requirement in the program? If you could just kind of explain that aspect to me.
That's a good question. And Jennifer, if you want to jump in on this as well, you can. I have a saying, I often say, if anybody is talking about neighboring, we all benefit. So it's not a topic I'm trying to own. And I don't believe any of our extension councils are trying to own it either. So if there are, multiple things going on in a particular county, or maybe there's a county level thing, and then one city in that county is really going gangbusters, I think that's great. I think that's a reason to celebrate that. There is a county extension council in every county in the state. And so that is the connection for extension, because some of these counties, there probably won't be another connector except for whoever works with or serves on the extension council.
And I believe we have a representative. I believe in St. Louis County, the mayors nominate a representative to the extension, I believe.
They do.
Although I actually found you all through Facebook. So
Well, that works too. That works too. So, and some of those extension councils, they are actually independent elected bodies. And so some extension councils may actually choose not to participate. Right. So, I'll know a little more on that as we get closer to the date to see what counties have representation. But I don't see a reason to restrict that and say you have to do this in partnership with the local extension council. I think it's not either or. I think it's all of the above. But Jennifer, do you have a perspective on that?
I think just to echo what you said, we're an independent organization. And so I'm going to let some people in. Okay. And, we haven't made a big effort to connect to the council yet. We are also in the St. Louis area. And so one of the things that I saw just looking at the list is there's quite a few of us in, kind of the St. Louis greater region. So there might be some value, Megan, in just those of us in this region setting up a Zoom and talking together about how could we multiply each of our singular efforts into something that would be helpful. That was my only kind of additional thought is maybe we could have a little chat.
And forgive me. Thank you, Jennifer. I feel like I'm about 10 steps behind. So the organization that you're saying you are an independent organization,
Mhm.
is that like the Good Neighbor organization? Or could you just talk a little bit
Sure.
about how that works
Mhm.
between the extension and then the
Mhm.
organization? And
Right,
forgive me
yeah.
if I missed this.
No, we didn't go into it in great detail. So I represent the Hope Neighborhood Project. And so, and I should have said that. I thought about putting it in my name there and I forgot. So David and I are simply collaborating on Missouri, well, other things as well, but we talked about we're fairly new. We did some things last year and I really loved what was going on in Missouri and said, hey, we've got some different maybe resources or connections that could help multiply your efforts. And so we said, well, let's kind of work together on a statewide sponsorship for this. So we're joining together in that way. So, you know, some of our gifts, as you said, which is that's a big word that we use in our organization. So some of our gifts, you know, could be lent to this, and then just to help spread the connections even beyond the extension offices and support what they're doing, or you know, represent areas, neighborhoods, things like that that aren't necessarily connected to a county that's been active.
You know, I'm hoping that all of our extension councils do get on board. So especially more rural counties are
Mhm.
involved in this in some way. But I recognize in urban settings, we're going to have multiple people, multiple organizations uh, involved in this, potentially doing their own type of celebration, their own type of publicity. That's great. And that's why like the nomination links and the active neighboring links, why we've not like protected those or kept them just on a website that you'd have to go to. We want people to use that freely, using their own resources and their own marketing and what makes sense with what they're doing.
Mhm.
And in the Google Drive, you'll find some flyers that have already been created. I think they're really well crafted and well designed, and we want people to use those. But if you're an organization that has someone with great graphic skills and you're wanting it to look slightly different,
Mhm.
that's okay too. We're trying to cover the whole swath here, people that maybe don't have any of those resources and need those tools, but allowing room for those who maybe even want to do it in their own way. I think both of those are fine. The end goal here is working together over this week, really making neighboring the buzzword that week. And I think by working together, we can really generate some great synergy and great outcomes over this and have lots of reasons to celebrate. There's a couple of questions here in the chat. Is the connector supposed to be doing stuff in every town in our county, or is it okay to hold something for the entire county located in the county seat? The answer there, Heather, is yes. Both of those are perfectly fine. If you want to do something in the county seat or where you're at, and that's what's going to happen this year for the county, then that is perfectly great. If there are multiple people in your county working together, or someone else wants to join in and do something in another county or another city in your county, then that is fine too. I know last year in Greene County, we had sponsors to do an award in every county, in every city. But I did not have anyone else helping me in any city besides Springfield and Republic, despite my best efforts. So we still gave out awards in those other towns, but I didn't have anybody else on the team helping. So in your case, especially first year, maybe focusing on one town in the county seat might be the best way to go. How do you find out the contact person on your council for your area? Great question. And I can send this out through emails too, but the extension statewide website is extension.missouri.edu. And there will be a tab there across the top where you can look up locations. So you just look up your county location And that will give you the information on the local office and your local council members as well. Some county councils may not have a specialist working there currently. I mean, like we're like other organizations, we're trying to fill positions. So that might come into play, but you would still have an extension council. So I just, email or call your local county office. Thank you for that question there, Echo. And Becky's in Bridgeton and St. Louis. Would love to be in a conversation with others in that area. Okay, so that again reinforces that idea. We need to introduce people that are from the same county and the same area via email. Yes, I will. I did send the link for the Google Dropbox through email on the reminder email yesterday.
And I just dropped it in for you.
You just dropped it in? Okay,
It's
thank you.
there.
Thank you. And so several asking about that. 4th of July parades might be a good place to promote Good Neighbor Week. And
Mhm.
there's already a flyer in the Google Dropbox that you can use if you'd like to share some of that. Once we're a week past Good Neighbor Week, I think we'll have look back and have a lot of really great examples to celebrate and be excited about what we've been able to do together. I guess that's part of the cheerleading. I fully believe we're going to blow that 10,000 right out of the water. And you'll be excited to be a part of that. I did say we are working on some possible donations that where if people report their active neighboring, another organization will make a gift to a nonprofit. We're in conversations with 2 different groups and trying to get those details worked out. And that would be another thing to celebrate because that's a big motivator for younger people. And hopefully more on that to come. And so individuals that want to get involved, just John Q. Public, saying just, do something neighborly and register your active neighboring, nominate someone who you think is an engaged neighbor. And the guidelines are kind of on that survey link about what that means. Spread the word, help others to get involved, and then share your active neighboring. We heard back in those marketing sessions, especially younger audiences, using the hashtag #MoGoodNeighbors. They're more likely to try and to hashtag that on Twitter or Facebook than they are to go to a link and report it. And so that counts as well. And we'll keep track of those. Spanish language flyers and posters. That's a great idea. Thank you for that. We will work on that. Got someone that can translate and help with that, and Jennifer May as well. Great
Wrote
ideas.
it down. So yeah, we'll make that happen. Good idea.
And just keep those ideas coming. Thank you. And so, so again, if you're a connector or if you're an organization that's just wanting to participate, organizing some sort of local event, getting those county residents to report their active neighboring and do nominations, those are really key, I think, to our celebration at the end and sharing out those promotional materials. And your emails will always have Jennifer's contact information and mine, but feel free to reach out to us at any time. It's an ongoing discussion. I think those are some of the important elements that were in the email. Again, that Google file link. And then I've also created a donation page on IOBY, which is in our backyard, if you're familiar with that. And this is really trying to gather some donations to help with some of the state level costs and sponsorships. But it's a way that people can donate online. And so I was looking at some quotes, and I'll just share one of these, but the impact that this type of thing can have. One of my favorites was from TH in Fairgrove, who told me that he wrote to me and said a neighbor had come and brush hogged his field for him. They knew that his mower was broken. And while talking with the guy mentioned that it was Good Neighbor Week in Greene County, that he'd seen the campaign going on. And so that guy took the initiative to go brush hog his neighbor's field. So I think there's all types of things that happen like that. and it can really be inspiring and encouraging. And I think hearing everybody's stories will be help be a big motivator for all of us. So any other questions about Missouri Good Neighbor Week? Let me stop the share here. And any other questions about what's going on? You need to see any other links?
Durante más de 70 años, Lutheran Hour Ministries, a través de Cristo para
Oops,
todas las naciones,
what have I done?
se ha dedicado.
Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry, that was.
We do have some websites already in place. If you're interested in that, this is the mock page for Missouri Good Neighbor Week. Right now, if you go to MissouriGoodNeighborWeek.com, it automatically jumps to our extension page about Missouri Good Neighbor Week. But we're actually working on Jennifer's staff, some people that she works with are actually working on this page that'll be dedicated, and it'll have links to those resources, but also links to the surveys to register your active reporting and posters that people can download, the graphics, the video. It'll be a really fully dedicated website to that. Right now, when you go there, it is the extension Missouri Good Neighbor Week, but that will be changing in the coming weeks. So any questions, observations? Angela, glad to see you're excited about Cedar County. That's awesome that you're involved there. And the spreadsheet has counties from all over the state, and that's exciting to see. Again, this is a good time to jump in with questions. We will keep the dialogue going by email and notify you of when new information's been posted and new resources are available. Jennifer, you have anything else to add in conclusion? I don't know if everybody's worn out, so they don't have questions, or we've answered all their questions.
My guess is we have primed the pump and the questions will start coming as people think about how this works in their context. So just know that we are both really excited about this, excited about making sure that you can be effective connectors. So in whatever way you need help or whatever questions, we've got some different layers of experience between David's experience and Republic. My organization and my team's got a little bit more urban experience in general, but I'm a country girl. So I've got all sorts of personal country experience from my growing up in rural America. So we, whatever your context, we can, help you think through things or ask questions. Just keep you encouraged.
Paul, I see you have a hand up, sir.
Yeah, are there any beginner's mistakes that I can avoid in organizing a block party?
Oh, great question.
It sounds like you already kind of know your neighbors and stuff. Generally, people ask that question and they don't know any of their neighbors. Say, meet them and introduce yourself first, then, block party later. But, well, I think one of the things that I have told myself in my own neighborhood, based on experience, is that when we do an ice cream social or a block party or get together, I am not responsible for entertaining everybody. I'm doing that to build connections. So I think at first I put too much pressure on myself about that, thinking I had an obligation to entertain everyone. And that's a different mindset. When I got rid of that and said, I'm just doing this to build connections, then it was a lot easier. And I think it took a lot of pressure off myself in doing that. So then it's not, did everybody have a wild and crazy time? It's, wow, we had a couple of neighbors come down that they haven't been out of their house in 2 years and they came down to block party. That's a success. That's a connection. So connection over entertainment. I don't know, anybody else want to add? Jennifer?
Well, a couple things come to mind. First of all, I think it was last month or the month before you sent out a little document that maybe you saw, Paul, from our friends in Kansas, the neighboring movement, and they had some kind of some quick tips for how to get started. And I'm pretty sure it was for a block party. So if you haven't seen that, that's a nice way to get started. And then I would say, we've learned this from talking with others, from our own experiences and from research, that if you kind of think about engaging people on their gifts or their giftedness, that can be a good way, so that you're not doing it alone, but you say, you know, I know, and since you know your neighbors, I know such and such is actually really, you know, really good at baking cookies. So rather than ordering, maybe she has some connections, or so-and-so is good at hospitality, or this person, you know, is just has whatever gift, maybe is a good at making stuff. So maybe they can make, you know, this thing for it. So if you engage some people with gifts, you know, about them, then you've got some automatic buy-in, and it's easier for you, but also kind of elevates people in their gifts. So those are my two thoughts.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. Yeah, and the entertainment part isn't a problem. For some reason, I don't know why, people find me entertaining whether I want to be or not. So
I don't have that problem.
It's the sparkling personality. It's the gift of that, I guess. Then that's awesome. Well, I think in one of the emails I did provide a link to the get together guide, and I'm getting that link right now, so that you can see that.
Perfect. Amy, you had a good question here. Can you suggest ideas for rural areas? Does anyone have a suggestion for Amy? I have something from way back context, but there might be someone with some better suggestions currently. So instead of block parties, how to bring rural communities together.
So I can speak to that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I live in Christian County in a rural area. And so we did do a block party. We knocked doors to get to know people in our neighborhood, about 2-mile radius within our hollow that we live in. So we literally just went door to door for several miles and met and introduced those people to get that relationship first, and had a flyer ready for a barbecue that we were hosting. And we were able to get 32 people at our very first event, many of who share property lines and never met one another in real life. So I think even in rural areas, we shouldn't discredit a barbecue, a bonfire, a simple block party. We offered the host because we had land to do it on, but I think don't be afraid to do it even in a rural area. And even if they don't come, maybe you can leave a business card with your information so that they know who you are as their neighbor. But I say go for a block party, even rural.
Echo, you put in a lot of miles, I think, covering all those households. Some of those were quite a ways away. And I think I recall that you may have been out late a couple of times, caught in conversations with neighbors.
Yeah, we talked for hours, just a few neighbors and I, and it really matters. We immediately were able to get a whole contact list. We now have emails and phone numbers and addresses for all those neighbors. And within, after that first event, first meeting, there was a house fire, unfortunately, in our neighborhood. And I could call several people and start the firefighters getting redirected. The dog was loose and we need to catch him. So there was an immediate need to serve our neighbors in a way that we wouldn't have no way to do had we not taken the time and made the connection socially, just for fun to do it. But then it immediately became valuable to us in a way of really helping a family in our neighborhood that we could not have done without those connections that we'd made the month prior. So you never know when that might help and matter to your neighbors. So
I literally have goosebumps.
Wow. That
Did
is a
you
great
put
example.
them into a group?
I
Or
chose to
anything?
just do an email. I do email for work and things. So since I was feeling like the leader of the effort, I emailed everyone after a spreadsheet of all that contact information and said, hey, here's everyone who opted in. Here's phone numbers, addresses, and emails, so that we all have them and we can be connected as best possible. And everyone opted in, so it was great.
Okay, and then say if, okay, for here, there's a lot of the places with a gate on the driveway. So I live in a very rural area and
Yeah.
most properties are 20 to 100 acres. And some people, you just want, but there's several small community stores, like we got the gas station that has everything. And that I could put a flyer and different things like that.
Yeah, I would ring the bell if they have a sign on the gate and see if you can talk to them. If not, I prepared little Ziploc bags with the flyer so it would be waterproof so I could leave it tied to the gate. And I did that for a few houses. So yeah, I wouldn't be afraid to still approach those properties if they are residential properties and still try and connect with them.
Did you just call it neighborhood? What did you call it?
I called it neighbor reunion. So whether we'd met for the first time or we were gathering together again, I called it our neighborhood reunion. So that was just my fun name.
That is
That's
a fun
wonderful.
name. Okay, so did you put that together with like the neighborhooding or anything, or you just said I'm Echo and I'm doing it?
Yeah,
So
I've
was it-
attended David's neighboring 101, 201 classes. And so I just went out door knocking and started it up. So
Okay. All right, wonderful. Thank you. I'm so glad I
Yeah.
asked and you answered.
I remember a lady last year in Galena, Missouri. I don't see her name on the list today, although she has attended some. And she had a similar story in that rural farmland, and most of her neighbors she hadn't met, and she ran into the gate issue. And so kind of like Echo with Ziploc bags and things, she hung things on gates. And I think she said all of the neighbors ended up coming or responding just from the things that she'd hung on gates. So
Wow.
in my suburban setting, I had some neighbors that were very reluctant to share any contact information. And when I first shared mine, I just kind of thought, oh, everybody's just going to reciprocate, right? And people didn't reciprocate the contact information. But when I ask, I haven't had anybody say, no, I'm not going to give you my cell number or my contact information. But I have found that I've had to ask.
Have you found any different, as far as people, because people around here especially are so far away from each other, what they end up, where I see them interact is on a Facebook group called like Ripley County Neighbors Helping Neighbors. So that's a resource I can use. There's a lot of people that aren't interested in Facebook. Have you found any other platforms, channels, something where for neighbors to be connected?
People will mention the Nextdoor app sometimes in context. Those things all have their places and can be effective. I will say that I'm not a big advocate of that. I think the face-to-face with the people living behind the 8 closest doors to your home, that personal face-to-face contact, that is the singular most effective place to start.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, like for them to continue to, like communicate with each other. If I was just looking for other options for that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I am speaking a little bit from old experience since I haven't lived in a rural context for a while, but I lived really rural. So 20 miles from the nearest town, we had a local church and I went to a 1-room school, but that's it. And so in a 10-mile radius, there was only houses and, similar to, like 100 to 1,000 acres per property. So, but we found our places to gather. We did a lot of driving by. We did try, that was before social, so we didn't have a lot of that. But I think people are used to finding those gathering places and sharing information through the grapevine, like in the gathering places. And so, just you've said there's a couple small stores, gas stations. I think those are the places where information can actually is spread through flyers, but also just through word of mouth. So and so had a house fire. The next day somebody's going to hear about it. The next day they need diapers, and the next day there'll be 20 boxes of diapers on the person's front porch. Can't really pinpoint how the information gets out there. It just does through those kind of gathering spaces and informal connections. So it sounds like you're doing a great job of trying to tap into those. And I think they're there. You just have to kind of just keep trying to uncover them.
Those rural stores, like you're talking about, Jennifer, those are great examples of third places.
Right.
A perfect example of that. And then in some suburban areas like me, we don't have a third place within 2 miles of us.
Right.
So that's an asset that rural community has, really.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, lots of good discussion and good questions. For those who weren't able to make it, this will be posted and shared online. For those of you that have had so much fun today that you want to watch the video again, it will be available to you as well. And hopefully this is the starting point and gets you excited about some things you can do in your local community and county. Look forward to seeing what everyone can accomplish.
Thanks so much for everyone's time and willingness to participate. It's amazing, encouraging.
It's fun to be at the start of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, let me turn off the record.